we really started educating ourselves on not only real estate investing, but me becoming a realtor. And then we turned that one into a rental, bought another single family live-in flip. And then we started buying more properties on the side and just investing. And now we have 5 short-term rentals, 11 long-term rentals, and right now we're looking for multifamily.
You're listening to the Real FI Podcast, where we discuss time-tested tricks, techniques, and strategies for pursuing financial independence today, so that we can enjoy a better tomorrow. A better tomorrow. Financial independence isn't about getting rich quick. It's about cultivating a foundation to grow financially, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Let's figure out how to kick the 9 to 5. Here are your hosts, Patrick and James.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Real FI Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, with my co-host, James Ripion. How's it going today, James?
Going well, Patrick. Another good day. I'm glad to be here.
Me too. Glad to be here. So we have 2 great guests, not just one. First time we've had a couple on. First time we've done 2 guests at once. So we're excited. We have Blaine and Lily. How you guys doing this evening?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having us. We are doing great.
Doing well. Double trouble. We got both of us here.
I know, right? Hopefully we get double the nuggets for this one, and it's going to blow up. So let's get started. James, take it away.
So Blaine and Lily, we always like to get started by hearing some background information on our guest. We want to know where you started, what you started doing, and how you ended up getting to where you are now. So fill us in about the background, maybe about how you guys met and how you first started getting into investing and what that all looked like.
All right. Well, we were both teachers, and she was a brand new teacher in the school that I was teaching at. And when I saw her, I just knew right then and there I need to go talk to her. And next thing you know, 2 years later, we're married. And I had owned I still own, but I had a 3-flat in Chicago, and I was living in the top floor. And I owned that with 2 buddies of mine, so we each owned 3 levels. And she moved in with me. And while we were there, we were starting to get to that point where we were thinking about buying a personal residence for just us. And we were toying with the idea of renting out the place. And we decided to actually throw it on Airbnb back in, when was that? 2009?
Yeah.
8 or 9.
Wow. Okay.
So in Chicago back then, Airbnb was like easy
2011.
peasy. We just threw it on there. We were booked solid. Like the minute, I remember we were sitting on the couch. We were like, let's just try. We don't have kids. Like, we took all of our clothes out, and it was like the minute we listed it, we had a booking like that night.
Well, we listed it with pictures of our own furniture. And then we had bookings instantly, and we needed to move out as soon as possible, and had no furniture. So we literally just moved out, left the furniture there, and we needed to find a place to live.
Then we started house hacking with her mom and dad.
Yeah, we had no furniture. So that's how we ended up with my parents' house for a little bit.
So yeah, we ended up moving in with her parents, which conveniently was like 3 blocks from the school that we both taught at. And that unit in Roscoe Village did very well for 2 solid years. And then the city started kind of clamping down and causing problems. So then we ended up going back to long-term tenancy. But we ended up buying a home together that was a live-in flip. So we went from living in her parents for about 6 months, found a house, started rehabbing it while we were living in her parents. And then we moved in there once we had a good chunk of it done. And then from there, we just kind of didn't even realize what we were, kind of getting into, as far as like, wow, we kind of started this ball rolling with real estate and didn't really know. And then we got that house up and running. I got my real estate license. We really started educating ourselves on not only real estate investing, but me becoming a realtor. And then we turned that one into a rental, bought another single family live-in flip. And then we started buying more properties on the side and just investing. And now we have 5 short-term rentals, 11 long-term rentals, and right now we're looking for multifamily. So 5, 8+ units is really where we're headed right now.
And we did have a couple kids along the way during a lot of this live and flipping, which I think Blaine put it kind of lightly, but let's be honest, we tore walls down, we added beams, we did the exterior, we literally gutted the whole house. That house is now on Airbnb, and we listed it recently and is pretty much fully booked through August. It is currently March. And so yeah, it's doing really, really awesome.
Yeah, I did well with the long-term tenant too.
Yeah.
You guys have so many experiences. You've accomplished so much. You've done a little bit of everything, it sounds like. I want to touch bases on the OG Airbnb rentals that you started doing from 2009. Had you guys been doing short-term rentals this whole time continuously since 2009? Or was there any breaks in that?
We would have had a lot more money if we did, though. We should have.
Yeah, if we would have bought like down in Florida or somewhere and had those now, we'd be oh man. But no, so coincidentally, when we did the Airbnb at that or short-term rental, I should say, in Chicago, it was going so well when we bought the house in our second primary residence, the live-in flip. Once we got it kind of looking good, we were going on a trip to Colorado for like 2 months, and we were like, why don't we just see what happens? So we listed that one.
Our personal residence, yeah.
Again. And so we had the one in Chicago that was doing well already. And we were like, well, let's try this one in the burbs. And sure enough, like it was booked while we were in Colorado. It essentially paid for our trip.
And yeah, paid for a trip and the mortgage. It was great. And we were teachers, so we would always travel a lot. I think what happened is life got in the way. We didn't have the right systems in place as far as Airbnb. At that time, it was Airbnb and HomeAway. Now it's VRBO. But I think we didn't have the right systems in place. We had 2 kids back to back, 2 under 2. And we also had projects in our own house. And so I think it was just getting too much. And between that and full-time jobs, Blaine also, was working 2 jobs because he became a real estate agent. So we're kind of like, okay, I know we're making more money here, but I don't think we really saw the full vision, to be honest, until I think Blaine kind of discovered Bigger Pockets, and then we ended up reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I think at the time it was kind of like, okay, this is nice, this is extra money, but I don't think we really, we were landlords, but I don't think we really understood it to how we understand it now. And now we try to teach that on Blaine's Instagram, and we'll create reels and stuff, just because it's like, we feel like we have this knowledge that most people don't know. And it's like, you have your mortgage pay down, but you can make money off of this. And if you accumulate, enough properties, then, you can actually leave your job and not have to work for 60 or 50 years, whatever, however long. But, so I feel like, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of why we haven't continued. We started the short-term rental stuff recently. It was less than a year ago, probably 9 months ago. And it was another one of those things where we posted some pictures. It wasn't fully furnished. We were hustling day and night, up all night, the night before and the day of, trying to get it ready because it just booked so fast.
I love that. My key takeaway from the first 5 minutes is that you guys literally just went for it. You didn't have really anything in place, didn't know what was going to happen, but you're like, hey, let's try it. Let's see what happens. And it ended up working because you literally took action. You went for it. And you said, we'll figure it out along the way. I think that's the biggest hang up most people have. And a lot of people probably listening to this and that listen to other podcasts and read books and all of that. There's so much information out there, and there's so many different ways that things could go, that a lot of the times people feel like they just have to understand every single little piece and have every system in place and all of this. And it's really like, the best learning experience you're going to get is by doing it, and that's what you guys did. And like you said, unfortunately, you didn't learn back in 2009, 2010, and go on a buying spree all across the East Coast and be sitting here millionaires right now and not have the time to talk to us. But we're here and you do. And I think you have such a ton of value to add out there, because even, you know, for when we had our conversation a few months ago, that a lot of these Airbnbs, I'm pretty sure you're talking about, are in the suburbs. They're not beachfront homes. They're not really in downtown Chicago where the tourists go. I think you do have one kind of in that area, or maybe two, but most of them are like suburbs, and you guys are killing it. So I think that is such some great knowledge for people out there. Like, hey, you can Airbnb in a neighborhood, you know? So on that, let's break it down for people out there on what the difference, that long-term rental income versus that short-term rental income in the same property, because I know you guys have done that, and kind of give people an idea of the power of doing the Airbnb versus the long-term.
Yeah, so our most recent, or not our most recent, but we had a long-term tenant in place. They were paying $2,600 a month before we actually burred it. So before we refinanced and cashed out, the mortgage was $1,100. So we were covering the water, garbage, and the long-term tenant was basically covering everything else: gas, electric, cable, all that good stuff. So we had a pretty good cash flow. Once we cashed out and refinanced and took the money out that we put in, the mortgage went up to right around $1,550, so just under $1,600, and we're still at $2,600 a month in rent for the long-term tenant. This particular property, our tenant up and just left. She was a really good tenant. This neighborhood is well known for giving great tenants. It's a great rental market. And she just all of a sudden one day she didn't pay. We were like, what's going on? And you know, I called and called, and usually she may be a day or two late. And then finally she calls me back and she's apologizing. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I moved to California. And we're like, wait, what? She's like, I got this job offer. I couldn't say no. My family came and moved all my stuff out. So the first thing I'm thinking is, oh my God, I hope the house isn't trashed. Like, she was a single mom, like she was always a really good tenant. So I wasn't too concerned, but there was a concern. So I raced over there. House was fine. Everything was great. So we started brainstorming. Okay. It was
Well,
kind
we
of,
had brainstormed before. We had a plan once she moved out, but she moved out way
She was-
sooner than we
yeah.
expected. So we hustled.
right. And we had connected with, and this is like you mentioned, if you're not networking and reading books, you're not doing anything. And one big confidence builder for us is we had networked with a number of investors, many of whom have been doing these short-term rentals in residential kind of neighborhood areas. So when we talked to this person, they were like, she just did you a favor. You need to just right now. And like, we were like, are you sure? Like, it's like, just do it. And I'm like, we were thinking back when we did it before, and this is in the same neighborhood. And we're like, you know what? Let's just do it. If we wait, you know, getting a tenant in the winter months in Chicagoland is never super easy. It's always usually you lose a little bit on rent. This was kind of getting in the fall. So our goal was to get it listed on short-term rental websites before Labor Day weekend. It took us up to the Wednesday before, and we got it listed. But in terms of numbers, 'cause I know I'm getting off.
Yeah.
Oh no,
So
you're
26
good. We like details. We like details.
So 2,600. So we listed it that Wednesday night live. It was booked for that weekend that night. And then it started booking so fast we had to raise the prices. And then it slowed down, and then we were booked through Christmas. And it was like within a week, we were like almost fully booked through October, November, and most of December. And as in terms of gross, so we're making 2,600 gross rent long-term. For September, I think we grossed 9,400.
No, it's 8,000 for September, and then we raised the prices for October.
So yeah, and they're not all the same, right? Because you know it changes month to month. But I think December was like our best month.
Oh,
November and December,
10,000, over 10,000.
10,000,
We
like
grossed.
gross, again, gross. We have to remember that because you're paying a lot more expenses now. You're paying electric, you're paying gas, you're paying water, garbage.
Your
We're
cleaners.
well, the cleaners we tie into the price, but you're paying Wi-Fi. We had to get like the top line Wi-Fi. We toilet paper, soap, all those things add up, right? But
Mhm.
still, we're making
I mean,
$6,000
$6,000 cash
more than what
flow
we were. Um,
That's
from one
that's just
house.
mind blowing to me because you guys literally went from having about $1,500 before your expenses, before with the 2,600 to between $5,000 and $6,000 a month cash flow. Same property, and even if you spent 15 grand, even if you spent 20 grand on furnishing and doing all of that stuff, um, you know, 8 months out of that year, you paid back for itself. I mean, you went from, maybe doing $10,000 a year in cash flow to now almost 60,000 after all expenses. It's like, holy crap. And that's with one property. So no wonder
Right.
you guys are expanding right now and, growing that short-term rental. I mean, these numbers always blow my mind. James, what do you got?
What's pretty cool is that, you're kind of stressing out about getting this place rented out in the cold winter months for just a nominal amount of rent. But you just flip it over to the Airbnb side of things and the vacancy is going through there's no vacancy and it's being booked up like crazy. So that dichotomy is pretty amazing in itself. How do you go about figuring out what your rental rate is going to be on these Airbnbs and figuring out what a good vacancy rate might be? Because it might not be 100% leased up all the time. Because like, as you guys were suggesting, you might have the rates a little bit lower. So how do you guys go about figuring out what that sweet spot is?
Honestly, I know a lot of people go on sites like DNA. We really just keep studying and we look every single day and we look on typically Airbnb. Oh, actually, Airbnb and Verbo. We'll look into that market and we'll see, what other Airbnbs are renting for. We look at their cleaning fees. We check out their calendars because you can see when those calendars are blocked off. Now, sometimes a host may just block off the calendar because they want to use that themselves. So if you are looking at something like a lake house or something like that could be a possibility. They could just block it out, because you don't know either way. But if you're looking at residential, like most likely people are not going to be blocking off, a house in the suburbs somewhere. So that kind of goes to show you. And so we'll kind of look at, how many days are booked. And it's a bit like if you look at a calendar and you see only like Fridays to Sunday booked, but then you don't get those bookings during the week, then you have to kind of do your math that way. And to me, like, I don't really know if it's worth it. But if you see that you have like, even if it's Friday to Sunday, but you'll have like a Tuesday, Wednesday booking, like, okay, people are coming here during the week for other reasons. And so that is a good, indicator as well. But you just have to kind of just study your market and really look into that is, what I suggest. And then right now, currently, because we have one Airbnb in our market, and then we listed another one, and we have another one that we're listing very soon. And then I'm actually managing an investors that we're in the process of furnishing right now, also in the same market. What's nice about that is kind of once you build up that status, people will just see like you're a super host. So they'll contact you and say, hey, I know that you're fully booked in July, but do you have any other, listings coming up? And so then you start to get more and more bookings before you even start to list them. And that, that's like a benefit as well. So like if you do kind of start with one, if you continue looking in that same market, you have that opportunity. If you raise your cleaning fee in your market, like I raised $5, the cleaning fee for one house, I instantly raised it for the other house. You'll see the people around you that are looking at, like if we're their competition, they raise their prices too. they raise their cleaning fee. And now all of us, if everybody was $275 a night, all of a sudden now everybody's like that. If their house looks like yours, now they're $375 a night, because slowly everybody's kind of looking at each other's competition. But then your prices start to go up too. So even if you have some competition, it's not necessarily like a bad thing.
And it's similar to, people that would buy, 3 rental properties on the same block. It's like you kind of start controlling how much the rent is. And obviously we compare our house to other houses and we look at the finishes. Like these homes we have are like almost completely gut rehabbed, like really modern, like nice new homes, compared to some others that are in the neighborhood that, are just older style, but nice. So a lot of it, I think we kind of tested it at a little bit of prices in the beginning, and then things started booking fast, and then we raised it, and then it slowed down, and then we kind of got to that, like, okay, this is where it's really hitting everywhere. And now that we have a second and a third and a fourth in the same market, we can kind of start at that point. And once you learn like what people are looking for, how many people it's going to sleep, all of those things factor in. If it's just a 1-bedroom condo versus if it's a 3-bedroom house that sleeps 8 or 10 people, it's going to change. And there's a lot of creative ways to go about that pricing to attract the most people.
So let's talk about your market a little bit. How would you describe the clients that you have coming to stay at your Airbnb? Like who is your ideal client? And also, what are you guys looking for in the property that you're buying in your market to be a great match for those clients?
So most of our guests are people that are visiting family. It's weddings, funerals, people just coming to visit. We get a lot of people that are doing renovations in the area that need a place to stay while those renovations are being done. We have transplant people that are staying while they're waiting to close on their house. We do have people that come in because they're going to concerts, they're going to certain things in the city, because we are pretty close to a really good train line. But for the most part, our guests are guests who have a knowledge of the area or family in the area. We have had some like business people that have come through with their crew and had to stay and have gone to different areas around. But for the most part, it seems like we're getting mostly groups, so like multiple families or bigger groups of people, and mostly people that are pretty much staying fairly local to the burbs. Not as many that are like, we're going to Soldier Field or we're going to a Cubs game. It's more about, do you agree? I feel like.
I agree, but I just want to add one thing. Just we are not doing so well just because of our market. When we were going to do this, we were hesitant as well. And we networked with Kevin Christensen, who has Airbnbs in some town in Delaware that I've never heard of, Dover or something. I don't know. Sorry, Kevin.
It's a pretty big city.
I don't know.
NASCAR.
Okay, I don't know. But somewhere I think in the suburbs, he said, of like this city, but he said, you guys, like you're going to make money. So as long as the suburb or town or whatever is like, they don't have ordinances against short-term rentals. And some do, but they don't really enforce it, but some truly enforce it. So you have to do your research. But as long as that's not happening and you see that maybe there could be a need for that, like you should go for it. Because I think, what we found is that, a 3-bedroom home can sleep 10 people. Here we have basements where we live. So that's nice, right? And even though there are hotels in the area, if you're traveling with a group of people, everybody has to get their own hotel room. People like to gather together. They like to have dinner together. And so as long as you're able to provide that, now that's not the only way. I mean, there's definitely different other short-term rentals you can have. But Kevin kind of whipped us into shape a little bit, using some language that I don't truly use, but he was really funny. But he's like, you guys just go for it. You're going to make money. You're going to do this. You just got to just do it. And it was really, really helpful. But I think what he kind of let us realize is that, you know, you just have to kind of go for it and do it. And you got to kind of trust your gut a little bit. And also when you get started, you're going to want to have a little bit of lower rates than your competition, not like truly low, but you want to get some bookings to start getting reviews. And once you start getting those reviews, then, you know, that's when you start to raise your prices.
The
So,
reviews, yeah, the reviews are big.
mhm.
I love it. I really do. I mean, you guys know I always say decide, commit, take action. And that's exactly, basically in a nutshell, you know, what you said right there. So that's huge. So let's zoom out a little bit. So you guys have, I think it was what, 10 properties, 11 doors.
I think now we're more than that. We have
We have a couple under contract, kind of
right.
some stuff going on.
I think we have 15 doors total, 4 of which are going to be short-term rentals.
All right, so 4 short-term
Mhm.
rentals, 15 total doors, so 11 long-term, 4 short-term, and then you got a couple under contract. So, you know, let's give with the people what they want, which is, what does that mean for you? You know, this podcast is all about financial independence, right? You guys have been doing this for a long time. You don't have to give us exact numbers, you know, but everybody loves round numbers. Everybody loves talking about the cash and why we all do this, right? To become financially free. So with your current portfolio, not with the ones under contract, you know, what does that look like for you and your family?
So right now we have goals, obviously, like most people, especially in real estate. I was able to step away from teaching because our rental portfolio allowed for that, and it allowed me to focus 100% on real estate, which is pretty much 50-50 realtor side and 50% investor side, or a little bit of both, whatever. The next goal is to reach enough that will allow for Lily to step away from teaching at some point. We've got that number down where it covers our health insurance, all expenses, to where we have enough cash flow coming in that if the market takes a big turn and we can't do anything, our rentals will still be providing for us. And that's kind of where we're at right now. Everything that we get as far as cash flow, we've been investing back into we're not at that point. It has given us a solid foundation to that makes it comfortable for me to not teach. But I'm also have a realtor side, which is essentially another business where we're getting income for that. But most of our money is going right back into, rehabbing so that we can refinance and pull that money back out, and then really stacking. And we want to get to that apartment building multifamily and have a good diverse portfolio of single family long-term rentals, short-term rentals in neighborhoods, and then short-term rentals in touristy areas, and then multi.
So I don't know if you guys have done this math, but have you kind of thought about how long it would have taken you guys to get where you want to go with the long-term rental play versus the short-term rental play? And have you guys thought about, looking back, like how different of a position you guys would be in?
Yeah, I think we said that we wanted to be 40 doors by the time
40.
she's at 40, and that's 4 years away. I think we're going to blow that out of the water now. And even though the market is really, really difficult, especially for people that are looking to BRRRR right now, it's really challenging. But we're still, we've done some creative financing deals. We've, started really amping up our off-market search. But as far as timeline is concerned, like, we didn't really have a hard date. I don't think that it was like, okay, we want to be completely 100% financially free by this date. But I think I'm a big deadline person, and we've been, we have a vision board and like things that really, gravitate towards where we want to be. And now that we're seeing what we are seeing with our rentals and what they're doing for us, and even the short term, now we kind of have a plan that's really kind of coming, like the vision is coming. Like we know, like, okay, if we can get this 5 to 8 unit, we'll be at this amount of cash flow, which is going to cut that down, where we need to be, and we can get 2 or 3 of these, and then we'll be there. And then it's like just stabilize. And once that's all stabilized, then it's like, although she loves teaching, okay, now it's time to join here to where we can expand even more. But I don't know that I answered your question, but I don't think there's
And look, if you don't feel comfortable giving out any numbers, like that's totally okay. I think people love to know, like, the goal. Say your goal is 30 grand a month. You're like, hey, we're 40% there. Like, people can do the math, but I think a lot of people have ideas of what someone who has 15 properties, makes. Like, everyone's a millionaire, and the reality is most people aren't. Most
right.
people are still working. She's still teaching. You're still doing being an agent, and you guys have, a multi-million-dollar portfolio, but that doesn't mean that you're chilling on the beach and your kids are going to the best private school. So I like to ask that just to kind of give people realistic ideas of where people, are at with that, and what their goals are. Because to someone who has 1 door or 0 doors, your portfolio is like their dream portfolio,
It's
and
interesting. I'm sorry not to cut you off. Like, it changes though, right? I think for everybody, like, our original goal was, okay, we need to get, like, for my teaching income, I'm like, okay, if we can get cash flow that matches what I was making as a teacher, we'll say $6,000 a month, then I can step away. And then now it's like, okay, if we can match what she's making, and then we're like, well, wait, now we have to get private insurance, health insurance. So we had to do the math there. So I think it kind of changes based on your goals. And like right now, like we've accomplished that, 6,000-ish. And now, like, it's kind of focused on, all right, what do we need? What else can we buy to get to that point that'll help us, which is going to be, with insurance and everything.
So I think with STRs, I mean, could I step away right now? Yes, I definitely could. However, we have short-term rentals that are making fantastic money. But if there is a change in an ordinance, that's shutting down that business, and we're still going to be cash flowing, not nearly as much, because we talked about those numbers. And so that is the concern. So really, I mean, it would just be too risky to do that now. And so that's kind of why we want to get some more long-term rentals where that is more consistent, if that makes sense.
And have that. So I kind of look at, the short-term rental money as kind of like the icing on top, it's good. But like you said, you want your foundation to be solid, and your foundation is going to be in those long-term rental assets. And then you're going to, exponentially grow that cash flow with those short-term rentals. That'll be nice, but they still make sense if you had to go back to long-term rentals. And I think that's huge. And what I'm hearing is that you guys have thought about all the different strategies. You've thought about all the different, exit strategies or changes in the market, changes in ordinance, because people have to understand that and like you said, as you hit these goals, your goals change. Because right now your goal is like, hey, 5,000, and you get there and you're like, all right, well, does 5,000 really do it for me? Or what changes if I actually quit my job? How much is insurance? Should I put in another year for my 401k, or do this or do that? But you don't think about that until you reach that goal, and then the goal gets a little bigger, and I think that's huge for everybody listening out there to realize that it's a cyclical thing. It goes up and down, and your goals change a little bit. But I think it sounds like to me right now, you guys are kind of in that exponential growth phase where it's been slow and steady, and then over like the last year, maybe two,
Yes.
if not 2 years, everything has started to hit this, and you're like, we're not taking our foot off the gas pedal. Like, let's just keep going, and we can achieve that in a very short amount of time. James, what do you think?
That's exactly what it is too. I'm sorry, James, cut you
Oh,
off
you're
there,
good.
but yeah, I mean, I feel like if I step away from my job right now, then we need to use some of that income, and then it's just not going to continue to snowball at this point.
What I was going to say is listening to your guys' story, someone looking at it from the outside when you guys first started might have thought that you guys are making a huge risk. You might be putting your money in risk and you're going to fail and you're going to do this, that, and the other, and it might not turn out the way you thought it would. But by taking those risks, you guys have actually put yourselves in a safer position, because now you have all these different streams of income. You got the realtor agent income coming in. You're still maintaining that safe teacher salary coming in. You have the option to leave that if you want to, but like you guys keep saying and coming back to, you don't know what the future holds. So having those different sources, different types of sources, long-term, short-term, multifamily, agent business income that you guys are developing on that side, plus the salary coming in as a teacher, is putting you guys in a much safer position relative to where you guys were before, not depending on one source, and also giving you at the same time that exponential growth that Patrick was talking about. So I think that's amazing. I think people need to have an appreciation for that.
Sorry, we
Yeah.
lost you there for a second.
But
Something
yeah,
kind of
thank you.
froze up. I don't know if it was mine.
Did you catch me,
It's all
Patrick?
good.
I did,
I
yeah,
caught
just cut
James.
off for a second.
Well, as long as
Sorry.
as long as our
Thank you.
guests could hear me, that's good.
Yeah.
But I was just saying,
I
basically,
heard
Thank you. Right. No, bigger appreciation for that. No, I think we appreciate it. And, I think it's also like about, how you manage your money too. I mean, there's just so many moving pieces too. It's like, we have a pretty solid portfolio, but we have walls in our house that have not that are half painted like for 2 years, you guys. You know what I mean? Like we have a
That's
basement
so funny.
that has, has some framing done. Blaine just demoed it and started framing and then got busy and there it goes. You know what I mean? So
Our rentals look nice for them.
yeah, and they're
Oh my
so
gosh.
like decorated like to the T.
well, that's the thing with being an investor like this. I feel like, and it sounded like you guys are experiencing the same thing. You keep reinvesting into yourself and into your deals that you create this external impression on others that maybe you're like super successful, and I'm sure we all are. We're doing these things great, but you have these like other things that you're kind of financially not, I'm not going to say wasting money on, but not putting resources into at the expense of growing the future investments that you guys are prioritizing. I know I see that in myself all the time. Like I drive like a not great car, 2009, 200,000 miles. And I do that because I'm plowing all my cash into investments and other opportunities, things like that. So I totally get where you're coming from.
That's so funny because, I will not think about spending $3,000 on multiple rentals to get like vinyl plank flooring and everything else. I've got 6-year-old carpet, like brown carpet in my house right now that Danielle has been dying for us to get new flooring done. And I'm like,
that doesn't bring any more rent.
Right, exactly.
Like, come on, like I feel you. Like we haven't painted our house since we bought it. Like we're in the same boat. We've been wanting to do our basement. I'm like, you know what? We need like 10 to 15 more units, and then we can do whatever you want, honey. Like we'll knock the house down and build a new house. I don't really care. Like just wait a second here. So you guys, it's so funny, and I think this opens up such a good part for people listening out there. Like, hey, every single one of us is literally putting every single dollar into our business, to grow, because it's that delayed gratification that I think a lot of people who are thinking about getting into real estate or are just starting out don't really think about when they think about being at a level that all of us are kind of at, is that you still have such a long way to go to really accomplish those big dreams. So I think that's huge. I kind of wanted to revert back a little bit because I think there's a nugget or two in here that we kind of glossed over. And one of them was I heard you talk about having some creative financing that you guys did on a property or two. So I'd really like to touch base on that. And then number two was crap. Let's
Practical
go on
things.
the creative
We'll
financing
start
one.
with
Let's stick
that,
with number
yeah.
one for
Another
now.
one there that I was off market deals. So you said
Okay.
off market deals. So creative financing and off market deals. I'd really love to learn more about that because I'm doing the same thing. So
Yeah, so we decided that we should try to go after some seller financing slash creative financing deals because we're getting, I wouldn't say maxed out, but we see the benefit, right? And we were like, could be a win-win as long as you can explain it to the seller in a way where they understand it really, truly, clearly. They see that it's a win for them, it's a win for us, and everybody ends up making out on it, and the bank doesn't take over everything. So we found a house that was down in Southern Illinois, and it was listed on the MLS, which is usually even harder to do a creative financing deal. And I started talking to the agent, and I'm licensed in Illinois, so I could just easily just throw a referral fee. But I said, what if would the sellers be open to creative financing or seller financing? And she's like, yeah, I think they would. And I'm like, well, are you familiar with it? And she said, I am. And I said, okay, great. So I kind of drew up essentially 4 different offers to present to her. And I told her, I said, listen, you're going to get both sides of the commission. I'm not asking for a referral fee or anything. So you're going to make more money. Seller's going to make more money, and we're going to save more money. So I'm like, this could be a 3-way trifecta. So we wrote up an offer that was all cash with our hard money lender. It was legit offer, but it was really low. I told them like, this is it. It was almost 110 grand below where they were asking. Second one was us taking out a regular conventional 10% down loan. And it was, we didn't really want them to take that offer. So we only went up a little bit. And then the 2 that were kind of more where we were hoping we went a little higher. So we offered them basically 5% down, amortized at 15 years with a balloon payment in 5, but the closing costs were going to be delayed for 6 months. So that was one I thought they were going to be pretty close to agreeing to. And then the other one, we went up even higher on the purchase price. We kept the 5% down, but we amortized it over 30 years. And the balloon payment wasn't until I think 10 is what I put. So they countered our cash offer. It wasn't really where we wanted to be for, all the potential holding costs with our hard money. And then they said, we'll agree to the third offer, which was essentially, it was 235,000. And they were listed at 292. So we felt like this is awesome. The house itself is in fairly, pretty good shape. We're going to do some rehab to it. It's a lake house. So it's on a lake, has lake frontage, and the boat dock, I think, is the biggest issue. That's going to be probably our biggest expense, but we see a lot of potential for not only short term, but just long term. We plan to keep this house for a long time, and the market on this lake has exploded over the last few years. So we are excited. We're about to close on that one next week. So we're almost there.
And if I could add something as well, I think we kept going back and forth with these different numbers. Even though this was MLS, seller financing is not just like you throw one offer down and you're done. You've got to put in the work, and you have to, do a little bit of the back and forth thing. But ultimately, we knew what the seller wanted. The seller wanted a certain amount of money and you know, a big chunk of money, and the seller wanted a certain amount each month. Like that's what they were really hoping for. And so essentially, you know, like I think once we kind of knew that, then we said, hey, well, we'll give you exactly what you're asking for. We're just going to give it to you in 6 months. And so that was kind of, you know, they were kind of like, well, I don't know about, you know, they were kind of okay with it because it was still what they wanted. The money wasn't right now, but that house hasn't been selling. So I think like, you know, what we learned is that you just have to, you know, kind of see what they want. It has to be a win-win for everybody. Like Blaine said, you know, just to make sure that the owner is also happy, you know, with the situation. Because I'm sure if they go and talk to somebody, they're going to say, why would you go with this, you know, with this idea? But there's definitely benefits, I think, to all involved.
And coming into it with an open mind and being creative, you know, coming up with, like, I think if I wouldn't have given them 3 options or 4 options, I think we might not have been able to get the deal done. So that's why it's called, you know, creative financing, I guess.
For sure. I absolutely love this strategy. I've done it myself before, and
Nice.
it's one of those things where I think it can go both ways. If you know what they're motivated by, or if you don't know what they're motivated by, I feel like it can work both ways because it helps pinpoint the seller down into recognizing what they want, even if they don't know what they want, because they're going to have these different options to compare between each other. So I think that's a fantastic thing to do. What I like most about it is normally when anyone submits an offer, you know, buying retail, it's a yes, no binary kind of situation. There's not going to be this negotiation happening for the most part, especially if you're buying something that's super hot on the market. They're going to pick their favorite offer and maybe make some adjustments and go from there. With this kind of strategy, making an offer in this way, it turns it from yes, no to either or. And the seller gets to pick the terms that are most attractive, and you get to flesh that out in a more one-on-one way. So I think it's psychologically, I think it gives a lot to you guys as the buyer to be able to adjust your offer to be on the same page with the seller. And so, like you guys say, you can have that trifecta. Everyone's benefiting from it.
Totally agree.
Yeah, that's great. I'm actually submitting a seller financing offer today as well. I have an idea on where this guy needs to be. I drew it all up. Haven't sent it to him yet, but I was only sending him one. And now after talking to you guys, I'm definitely going to send him at least 2. I love the 30-year and 5-year balloon. I'm doing all that. I was thinking 10%, but I'm going to lower it to 5 and just see what he says. What interest rate did you go on that? I'm just wondering, with the interest rates rising.
0.
You got 0? Oh my God! How you left out the greatest part of that?
Yeah.
So you got a 15-year AM, right? 15-year amortization for people out there. 5% down. 5-year balloon, which means that you have to refinance into conventional financing to pay off the existing note. Please do not tell me this is interest only, right? Okay, so you do have to give
0%. So
all right, but 0%.
And
0%
then
interest.
yeah, and then so we split it up. So is it the down payment is in 6 months, or the commission, the closing? We are paying the closing costs
so we're paying the down payment and the closing costs.
in
The
6
down
months.
payment and closing costs 6 months after you get access and have the property. So
Once we start
you're gonna-
making money on Airbnb, yes,
then you have to pay
that's the
them.
point.
Paid
Oh
when
my
paid.
gosh.
I like it.
I have to say, I think this is possibly the best deal that we've heard anyone explain on our podcast. And you are making me extremely jealous right now. I'm like, I need to go get a better. I thought I've done 2 pretty good seller financing deals, but man, you guys absolutely hit it out of the park. And the biggest thing is you just asked. Like, you just asked. And I mean, look, you don't even need any money. Like you're gonna be making money off the property before you even pay for any of it. And you got it 0% interest when interest rates are rising, inflation's going crazy, and you just Oh my gosh, that's
That was
amazing.
due to education. That was a
I
pay
mean-
some more, be strategy.
And there's still there, I mean, come on, there's still risks involved. It's there, there's a lot going on here, and it's going to be short-term rental, and we're testing a market that's starting to grow really well. So I don't want to say it's a complete home run grand slam, but yes, we are really, really excited.
Look, you can be
about
as
this.
humble as you want, but okay, to get 0% interest, and all of that deferred down payment and everything else. I mean, that's a slam dunk. I mean, it really is. So, and you got other stuff going on. So if stuff doesn't work out, you can come up with the money from your other investments, which you guys have thought about. So
Right.
again, it's you're knowledgeable, which you are, right? You found an opportunity and you asked. And I'm sure you did a lot of digging in between to see where the guy wanted, and you worked backwards to put the deal together for it to make sense. So that's awesome. It hasn't closed yet, so I know that's why you're still a little leery about everything. Once
It was
the
supposed to
ink's
close.
dry,
Yeah, it was supposed to close tomorrow, but it got pushed a couple of days. So we would have
yeah,
been
so
more
that's why
excited.
you're leery today about celebrating right now. But that's awesome. Congratulations. I can't wait to see more on that one. I mean, and I just think you guys just gave everybody something to really take away from this.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're really excited.
And that's really huge. So, all right, you just dropped some serious bombs on us on that one. Tell us about what you're doing to find some off-market deals. What does that look like?
This is challenging. We've been, honestly, I think it starts with networking. I think it starts with just being a good person. We've been getting so many leads just from people that we give referrals to, especially contractors, contractors that we treat well, and we send them more business, and then they hear, oh, this guy's looking to sell, and then they tell us. Like today I met with two different owners, and they're both off-market properties, and that they both came from a contractor who we've used a number of times. So I think being a good person and treating people the way you want to be treated is always going to help. But networking, I mean, honestly, like Instagram, social media, like we do a lot of reels and things like that, and then we have people like just reaching out to us, and it's like, hey, I have this property, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it, and then I'm like, let me stop over, I'll take a look, and maybe we work out a deal between the two of us. If not, I'll try to sell it for you, kind of help out the best we can. But we've looked into doing the cold calling kind of, we talked to a bunch of people who have been doing the virtual assistants. We have not signed on to this yet, but everyone that we talk to that are getting a lot of leads, this is what they're doing. They're using PropStream, which we've dabbled with a little bit. Looking into the virtual assistants that will just make those 500 calls a day, and try to get some leads that way, but we haven't pulled the trigger on that one yet. So we've been looking into these things because it's hard right now, to get, and then we've used some wholesalers, sending us some things, but we haven't closed a deal with any yet. So this is all still kind of in the works. And we're always looking to connect with people that, have ideas to find, off-market deals. So
I know James has got some experience with off market, right, James?
Yeah, I mean, it's just something you got to be consistent at. I've never used a VA and done cold calling or anything like that, but as far as your mailing and your systems go, you just have to be consistent. And you're going to have some dry months and some really busy months, but you got to be available to take action on those leads whenever they come in, and just do that repeatable process every week, every month, and follow through with it each time. You guys had mentioned that you might be managing a short-term rental for an investor, right? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Tell us about that deal.
Well, it was an investor. I have a meetup. It's been mostly virtual, and once everything kind of started with COVID opening up, I have hosted also in-person meetups as well.
networking.
Networking, yes. And I had an investor as a guest speaker at a recent event that I had, and she had asked me the next day if I would design she has a house that she just finished rehab on, and it's very close to actually, where our STR is. And she said, would you design it when it comes, as far as like the furniture goes, and order everything for a flat fee? And then would I be interested in managing it? And I said, sure, this is like right in our market. This will provide more work for our cleaners, and I get a little bit of a cut. And also we're at the point where we're getting so many people asking us for if we have more listings coming up, that I can just kind of send business her way before, we even furnish. And so now we're at the point where most of the furniture has arrived. She's got a handyman working right now, assembling everything. And yeah, we'll be live next week.
And it's
So
like,
cool.
so now we had 3 different investors that have reached out to us in just the last couple weeks. And like, we've been a really good team. Obviously, you have to when you're doing not only short-term rentals, but investing in general. But like when we started doing the short-term rentals, like Lily and her mom, like just setting up a system with like what we need to order, getting stuff assembled. The hardest part, I think, to any short-term rental is furnishing it and getting it ready. So she, got this
I
offer.
have this
She's got
down
it.
like clockwork.
And I met with an investor this morning who was considering, converting a couple of his rentals into short term. And I talked to him and I told him what we've been doing, how Lily's been doing it. And he sent me a text. He's like, I think we're going to hire you guys. And it's like, this isn't even a planned business,
Yeah.
You're like, we're not even in business. Like,
right.
I was like, do we need to open up an LLC for this? Probably
it's
should,
so
right?
funny. It's so funny how this whole thing started, because you said, hey, we're just going to list this apartment in this 3-flat on Airbnb and see how it goes back in 2009. And here we are, 2022. And now you're like, oh, well, we'll help this person out. And now you almost have a business of helping people get started on Airbnb. Like, how the tables have turned, huh?
And you know what? Like, that's another thing about, and obviously not everybody wants to do this, but our reviews, like we work hard to not only to get these reviews, but we reach out to our guests that haven't given us the review to get them to leave reviews. And when they leave us, I think we have 100% 5-star.
We do.
But they get detailed like about not only the house, but like our communication and how like when they needed something, we were there. It's hospitality. Like, so when other investors go on and they can read all of our reviews and they're thinking about hiring someone, they're like, oh my gosh, these guys are getting great reviews. And now all we have to do is obviously keep up.
Well,
Are
that's a
you
great
guys gonna
thing.
manage too?
I'm sorry.
James. I said, are you guys going to manage it for them too?
This one,
Yes.
yes.
I mean, I hear this is just what I've reached out. I hear that's anywhere from like 15 to 20%. I don't know if you guys are going to be in that range, but that sounds
It's 20,
pretty
it's
awesome.
20, yeah, it's 20 to 30%. I told her I'll take 20%. And then the next day, another investor reached out to me as
You
well.
sold
And
yourself short.
I was like, should I have set a higher
All right,
price?
so they're going to drop their Instagram and ways to contact them later. So if you need them to do that in the area, it's going to be 30% with the discount. The Real FI podcast.
We do an inverse discount on this podcast, so you're gonna pay more.
Thanks. Appreciate it,
You're gonna pay
guys.
more because they'll be so busy. So
Yeah.
that's
I think that's what's so cool about the short-term rental space for those investors who want to take a more passive route. Like, investing in real estate, people get into it because they think it's passive, and then you get elbow deep in repairing a toilet or evicting a tenant when you're trying to manage it yourself. So then you go on to, like, if you didn't already start there, trying to find a property manager. But the biggest problem with having a long-term rental is finding a good property manager. I don't know if you guys have had problems with any property managers. I haven't had like any horror stories, but I've also come across those managers that I know would have done better if I had, researched them ahead of time and maybe known what I was getting into. And that's what's so cool about the short-term rental space is everything that you guys do is out there for peer review. And you can see what your guys' ratings are. So if you have a client who's going to come to you and you're going to manage the property, they can vet you that way very clearly. They're going to know what your track record is from the beginning. So I think that's really cool opportunity that you guys have and you're capitalizing on to make sure that you can market yourself for that potential business that appears to be starting right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I agree. And like my big thing is like I really like, even for my long-term tenants, and we are self-managing currently all of our properties, but like I want my tenants happy. So like I really work hard to make sure they're happy and they enjoy living there, because I want them to stay. You know, the less turnover is better for me. So and same thing with our guests. Like, and I don't know how other investors are, but I don't sleep much anyways. So it's like you know, if someone, you know, has a problem and like my phone is next to me, you know, I wake up or I'm still awake and I'm just like boom, 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 and I just respond to them right away. And they're like, oh my goodness, thank God, you know, he responded in 15 seconds, you know, and they post that in their reviews. But I agree. You know, we go on plenty of trips and we use short-term rentals as a place to stay in lieu of hotels. And the first thing we do is look at, you know, those reviews. And some of them is like, whoa, man, these are some bad reviews. Like, we're not staying here. Or, and the same thing, like you mentioned, like other investors aren't going to want that management.
I'd be curious to know if those ones that you stayed at that were poorly reviewed, whether they, you know, were owner managed or third party managed, or what the situation was there. I know, you know, in experience, like I started out just real estate investor, hiring it out to property managers and just, you know, putting my trust in them. And then I became a property manager and an agent managing my own properties as well as other people's. And I can see how property managers can fall into the trap of just collecting that rent check and not giving a shit about the property after that. As long as the rent check's coming in, you know, there's nothing to worry about. But the good property managers are going to be the ones going out there doing the inspections, checking in, doing the walkthroughs, constant communications. So I think that's great that you guys can have that all on display so you can showcase this to other people.
Yeah, I agree.
Me too. Me too. Well, guys, I mean, we have packed a ton into this little more than an hour right now, and I think we could just keep going. But this is the part of the podcast where we've changed the name 3 or 4 times, but I think we're going to go back to the big 3. I think we're going back to, instead of the wrap up, we're going to call this one the big 3. So
Big
James,
right.
Man, I had
Kick it
4 on
off,
this one. I
brother.
think we're gonna have to rename it again.
the big
trifecta.
4, and we don't edit these podcasts, so everything that's in here is staying. So let's call it the big 4, James.
The big 4. Let's do it. So the big one of the big 4. What's something that you guys know and that you guys do that feels like a cheat code to achieving financial independence? Something that you guys have kind of started doing that, you know, just feels like everyone should know. It just seems like an obvious key, but just isn't. What's that cheat code for financial independence that you guys know?
Man, that's a tough question.
Because I feel like we covered a lot. I think one, I mean, I don't necessarily know if this would be, I suppose, a cheat code, but you know, Blaine was never active on social media, like at all. Like he didn't even have a Facebook, like when we met or anything. And then he started kind of posting some like quotes on there or whatever. And that sort of grew. And we had so many friends that just like, I felt like made so many jokes about it. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, you're 40. Now he's a little bit older. But he's like, you know, you're 40. Like, what are you doing posting on social media and stuff? And then I feel like when you show people what you believe in, who you are, what you do, they internally want to help you. And essentially it's like, you know, we are who we are, whether we are at a meetup, at a podcast, at, you know, in front of an Instagram live, like we are who we are. And I feel like people kind of get to know us. They feel like they know us sometimes people reach out, we don't know who they are, but they feel like they know us. But I think what happens internally is then, that will either sometimes lead to Blaine having a client. Sometimes that would lead just to someone saying, hey, like there's like a really like nasty house, like, on this and this street, like it's abandoned. Because people want then to see you succeed because you kind of put yourself out there for all to see. So I feel like if you're that person that hasn't posted anything about investing and you're doing it, post it, like let people know and get out of your shell. Because I feel like it took him a while to do that. And then you just have to build that tough skin. And now it's like, we actually get really positive like feedback. And like a lot of those people are liking all of our posts. So it's like,
My cheat code, and when I think about cheat code, I think if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. And number one, it's just reading and educating yourself. And number two is networking. If I take those two things away, there's no way I'm where I'm at, because I would never have built that confidence by reading Rich Dad Poor Dad like everybody else, and then just piggybacking onto the 30 other books that I've read, that is all focused on real estate mindset, and just those two things. If you're not doing those things, I'd be surprised that you're successful.
You know what? That was the perfect segue. And I think those were both two really great answers to our first question. But that was the perfect segue into question number two, which is, are there any books, podcasts, people, or research or resources that have really shaped your financial independence journey that is not Rich Dad Poor Dad, because that is the one that everybody said. So drop some other ones for the people out there to go.
Blaine's the book guy.
Yeah, I'm really big on mindset, because I feel like in real estate, you have to be open-minded. You have to be really driven to be ready and prepared for anything that can happen. Who Not How is a great book that I recently read, and then I read his the next book after that, The Gap and the Gain. Two wonderful books. And then back to the mindset side, James Clear is one of my favorite authors.
Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits is one that I feel like James Clear is in my brain when it comes to just mindset and just believing in yourself, because you have to. And then the podcast side of it, we wouldn't be anywhere if we didn't listen to Bigger Pockets. Right from the beginning, one of my friends, actually the friend that moved to North Carolina, he was the one that introduced it to me, and I started right away listening, and I was like, what? And then I got her on it, not knowing that she was going to just dive right in. And then I just, read The Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich, all those books, but it's kind of evolved into like mindset, and then really just keeping current with all the new real estate education.
That's awesome. A lot of great books there. I think Atomic Habits, fantastic book. I would second that one. Absolutely. So for the next question, we're going to do a little bit of, I don't know if you call it role playing or mental exercise or whatever. So it's 5 years in the future. Okay, you guys have been working at this steadily, building up your portfolio. What excites you guys most about reaching financial independence, and in yourselves, in the position that you guys are in 5 years in the future, in terms of business, in terms of personal life? What excites you guys the most?
You want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. Okay, so here's how our day is going to be.
Oh,
you got it all planned out.
Breaking it
you
down.
didn't even ask me what mine is. She's already decided.
She's telling you
I
what
have
you're
her
doing
day planned out. I've been waiting for this question.
Yeah, she throws her hair back.
Okay, so we're gonna wake up in the morning and make breakfast for the kids, and we're gonna walk them to school. Currently Blaine gets
I
to
do
do
that
this,
every day.
but I don't. Okay. And then he and I are gonna hit up the gym together because we are very active people. However, we have to work out on separate schedules because we have kids and jobs and all this stuff. So we'll go and have a good workout. Then we're going to get some work in. We're going to look at properties. And then Then we'll
it,
pick
huh?
up the kids. However, the big thing with us is we're huge on travel. And so we traveled a lot when we were broke teachers. We carpooled or not road tripped everywhere. And we would just kind of get away. And now we really want to and are looking forward to more getting into a place with that and really showing the world to our family. I was born in Poland. I'm an immigrant. The world is so big and we can go to so many places and travel. And so as long as the kids' sports do not interfere with this, because I know they will at that age in 5 years, we'll definitely be doing a lot of traveling together. But as far as like a daily plan, we're just looking to making sure that we get that fitness in, we get, that education and that think time, that mindset, maybe hit up a yoga class, when the kids are at school and life is just, normal, how life goes, but making sure that we have lots of trips planned with them.
And for me, it's obviously very similar. We're compatible. But for me, I am also a musician, and I really see the future where I can focus on getting back into the studio or back into like a band, and really designating some time for music. And that's something that has really taken a back seat over the years, and I miss it. And I know I'm really good at it and creative when it comes to writing music and being in a band. So that's definitely one big financial freedom goal of mine, on top of all of that stuff that she said. And a lot of that stuff she said, I kind of feel bad because like I
He
got a
does
lot
a
of that
lot
right
of
now.
this.
Like I got the walking the kids to school and having the middle of the day workout, and just today like just meeting with other people and networking about real estate. And that's definitely our 5-year goal. That seed has been planted.
That's awesome.
I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. Quick question: guitar, bass, drums, singer. What do we got?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, all the above.
Piano as well.
My son had piano lessons today. We have a baby grand in the house. I've been playing guitar since I've been like 16. I was in a really good rock band for probably 4 or 5 years in the 90s. We started out doing, the typical Pumpkins, Nirvana type cover band, and then we evolved into doing like all originals. We have like 3 or 4 albums. But yeah, I play a little bit of drums, bass, guitar, and piano, and probably singing is more on the lower side, but I'm getting better.
Would you drop the name for us? I need to go check this out now.
Oh boy. So the band back in the day was Parade of Fools. If you go on Reverb Nation, we do have like most of our albums on there. And then on Reverb Nation, you can also find my solo stuff, which is Blaine Kosek. And yeah, we got some good songs there. It's mostly, I would say, alternative rock, I guess you could call it.
I love it. That's awesome.
We're definitely going to link to
So-
that in our show notes.
We are
Thanks.
going to link to our favorite song on there. All right, great guys. Well, this has been awesome. I know I've taken a lot away from this, and I'm going to use these nuggets right now. So by the time anyone's listening to this, I've already used that to hopefully close a deal. So, all right, for everybody out there, what's the best way to get in touch of both of you? Maybe subscribe to that virtual meetup. Where can people reach out?
Definitely Lily's meetup. How'd you do that?
Contact me at lilykosek@gmail, LILYKOSEK@gmail.
And then Mia, it's mostly Instagram. So at Realtor Blaine. And I'm very responsive. So you send me a message. I recently made a few posts that I'm willing to mentor people for free. Anyone that's really getting started, that they don't really know how to, push through and build that confidence, let me know. I'll set up a quick free, Zoom call with you and kind of lead you however I can.
That's awesome. Everybody needs to take advantage of that.
Yeah, definitely. I know I will, because you guys dropped some nuggets on me. So we'll be doing another Zoom call. All right, everybody. Well, we're wrapping this episode up. Make sure to leave us a review. Follow us on Spotify, Apple, Google, all that good stuff. Tell us if you loved it. Tell us if you hated it, what we need to do better. And make sure to subscribe to YouTube, because we have like 15 subscribers. So we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to the Real FI podcast, where you learn from the investors that have lived the hard lessons for you. To connect with us during your pursuit of financial independence, be sure to join our community by following us on Instagram or emailing us at info@therealfi.com. If this content made you financially, mentally, physically, or spiritually richer, please make sure to leave us a positive review on your preferred content platform. Cheers to kicking the 9 to 5.